we're talking about here in the name of art. Like we could be talking about anything, and then later on down the line we'll start saying Jesus, Jesus. But I already left out after the first hook. So so I like things that are very clear about what I'm speaking about, and it's no shade to that. It's just that's just the era I come from. So.
We raising the bar. You tuned in to the Trackstarz.
Yeah, back in the field with the Trackstarz. Ryan Wright, Shantana, DJ Jeremiah was good.
All right, this segment is sponsored by Audible.com. Go to Audible.com/Trackstarz for your opportunity to check out the new books. I just recently ordered a new book. It's called The Road to Jerusalem. And it basically talks about the history of Jerusalem, how the great city became the great city, and the fall of it, and then the wars that happened in between and afterwards. So it's really cool. I think it's hard to get through. You know what I mean? Because it's just one of those books that has I guess what you call a foreign commentator. So they speak in different dialects. So you have to just kind of listen and be patient with it. But really good. So go check it out. You can go to the Trackstarz Audible page, audible.com/Trackstarz.
audibletrial.com/Trackstarz. That's how you get the free book.
Okay.
I was actually looking at it's called Crossing the Chasm. Have you heard of that book? It's basically for startups and businesses that there's a moment where you cross from early adopters to like really loyal customers, right? Okay. So I haven't gotten too far into it yet, but I think it was recommended to me. So cool. If you like either one of those, you want to get either one of those books, make sure you go to audibletrial.com/Trackstarz and you can get it for free. All right. So we have a very special guest with us.
Very special guest.
Janette, how are you?
Hey. Man, I'm ecstatic to be here amongst all the brethren and sisters.
So this is special for us because people who have been listening to our show for a while know that we ran we ran a spoken word ministry for years, right, in Atlanta called Destinations, and we were very big fans of you guys on the West Coast, P4CM and Poets and Autumn, all what you guys do. So as a spoken word artist, we got spoken word artists here, performers here. So
how did I know that? She didn't even say anything, and I just knew.
You knew, yeah. This comes off her. So like we experienced. I don't know what you guys went through, but we had a lot of experience doing shows and spoken word shows and such. So I have questions for you on that and your experience out in LA. But yeah, we just want to know about you. First, I want to kind of get an idea of what got you into spoken word. How did you get connected with P4CM?
Yeah, it started actually with poetry. Like I randomly came across some journals that my mom had hidden in the garage one day, and I was just like, yo, this is actually really dope. Oh, wow. And it inspired me to write, and I wrote, and then I was like, well, I want to, do this at church. And then I started doing it at church, and they were like, nah, like, they're like, not this. So literally they were like, hey, you can do these poems written by this person or written by this older woman in the church, but you cannot do that stuff here. Wow. And so it was, it was hurtful, but it was like, I'd rather not. So so I just didn't exercise that gift or talent at church. But I ended up being in a music group with two other guys, which one was my brother, another was a really, really just dope artist. And he was a poet. He was like, yo, I would love for y'all to come to Leimert Park. And that's when my socks got knocked all the way off. I had never seen poetry like the talent level to be on that that level. I'd been in church where everybody was like, go ahead, baby, you good. And so it was like, yo, well, let's sign up for the open mic, and got booed plenty of times, especially absolutely.
That's a great experience.
Absolutely.
That's a great experience.
And I was talking about Christ, and it was that's the whole, this is on the cusp of, and I'm going to tell my age, this is on the cusp of Neo Soul, this is on the cusp of Talib and Mos are just coming out with it's a very dope era,
Deaf poetry
was a big deal. So poets, period, it was huge to be on the stage in Leimert Park, period. So booed a lot of times and kind of just kept doing it until it got to the point to where finally the veterans were like, yo, I don't believe what you believe, but I have to respect what you're doing. And so I'm grateful for the boos. I wish we had more opportunities like that. No, I mean, honestly, because I feel like now it's just so easy to kind of just put whatever out.
Yeah, that's true.
And because you have the access to put whatever out, you don't have anybody to really screen you and say that, like, let's redo that, or that's trash, or like, you can come harder than that, or you can think through that a little bit better.
Yes.
So Lamert Park, man, like that was and it's really crazy because I came up in the era, like I would see me and people know him as Thomas Terry now, but Odd Thomas and Prop, we all would be running in the same situations.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're all old. But yeah.
Great. So what was the theology around that area? Like, what was the people into that were y'all getting booed so much? I know besides just like them not robbing with Christ, but what was the doctrine that they were getting fed?
It was the 5% Nation was a big deal at that time. Like Wu-Tang was a big deal at the time. So it was really more so heavily that and that type of anything that had guitars and incense.
How did you decipher what was booing because of talent and what was booing because of faith?
Yeah, because you know what? Believe it or not, it was such a space that was genuine where everybody could kind of share, and it wasn't like this thing where it's just like, if you're Muslim, if you're this, if you're that, we're just gonna boo you. And they made it clear to me. People would put me to the side and say, it's whack. Like to this day, I never my mind was blown when I saw a lady get up there and she was like, I have a tribute poem to D'Angelo, and I was like, okay, this should be good. And she said, I want to run barefoot through your cornrows. That's over. Like, I was like, you can do that with words? Yo. Now, how do I not talk about D'Angelo and talk about Jesus right after this How Does It Feel video just came out? You know?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I had to sanctify myself and then go back to talking about the Lord.
That's dope. That's dope. So I kind of want to talk about how you write and kind of how you create, because your style is very interesting to me because you don't heavily rely on rhyme. There's a lot of time it feels monologue, but then you inject rhyme at the right times. So when you write, is it all at once? Like, because I want to brag on this lady right here. She's amazing, right? Yes. So in our and I want to kind of, how close are you guys to us, right? We used to have meetings twice a week where we had free writes, right? And she was the queen of free writes, right? 5 minutes, she would have a whole piece, right? But then we would critique each other, right? So we would go down and say, I don't know about this, I don't know about that, right? Are you a writer that can get it all out that fast, or are you getting pieces of it and then you put it together when you sit down?
I'm definitely not that. We actually, when we started coming together at P4CM, that's how it was. Like, in the beginning, we would all come and we'd just write. We didn't even know what we were going to be doing with this poetry. It was just like, yo, like, I want to provide a space, for y'all to come in. And for some reason, when me and Ezekiel, whenever we get on stage together, it just was this, like, something would always happen.
Yeah.
And now, it was this weird, like, strange chemistry. So when we would write, it would like, things would come together fairly quickly. But individually, no, I'm not that person that can just spew it out. I can spew something out, but it won't be to the standard I really want it to be.
Yeah.
And most of my pieces, I had to have like different experiences that actually, that's why I couldn't finish the piece. It kind of reminds me of that scene in the 5 Heartbeats, like when the brother and sister are like pulling the trash can and like getting little pieces and they're making the song, and it's just like, that's how it feels. I like write notes or I'll write stuff down. But for me, especially because a lot of them are personal experiences, it's different. And I feel a different weight because of the way that people look at the poetry now. People are using it as parts of sermons. People are using it as, it's just like, so I feel a different responsibility when it comes to like, hey, like, let me flush this out and passing it through, my husband would be like, is this sound theologically, doctrinally, is there anything that's off or anything that I'm saying that, because I feel heavily responsible. Like, I don't want people really repeating my words. I want them to be able to track it back to scripture.
And how edgy were you guys getting? Because I've heard a few of your poems where I can sense, because we got as far as controversial, we got to a line where it was like, we had somebody that say, okay, that's too far. Pull back a little bit. I know what you're going for. You're going for a shock value, but pull back. How did you guys decide on, that's probably a little too raw for what we're doing? Yeah,
I think that we were kind of encouraged to be very raw and to the point to where I was beginning to think about writing about things I didn't even have experiences really with, Like, I participated in this one time. Well, you should write a poem about it. It's like, I don't know, And I think there's also a danger in that, because you may do more harm than good, because you're exposing people to elements and different worldviews that they probably weren't even exposed to at all. I remember one time I was at church at P4CM, and my godbrother was like, he was like, Janette, this is just making me feel like I want to do something. This is not helping me. Like, this is not helping me. I know she's talking about her testimony, but I'm thinking about her naked. I was like, okay, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. You know, and that was like a very pivotal moment for me, because I think that, again, you have to be careful. And then all the time we weren't thinking about the age groups. A lot of times we're rocking down with our ex-masturbator shirts, and we're like, and kids can read, you know, and so you know,
that
it's
they
like,
can.
yeah. So I think, and I don't think I personally ever really got all the way kind of there, but I think because I think I was definitely older than everybody else in that P4CM era. So I've done some very, even the first poem I did there, I said some very touchy things, and I think just with wisdom and just really asking the Holy Spirit to really mature me in those areas. How can I make sure, because you don't want to lose somebody with just being offensive off the top.
Right.
When did you know y'all impact was happening? Because I remember seeing y'all on at the time when World Star was hot.
Oh man!
And I saw y'all videos. I was like, oh wow, this is about to change. And it was like stuff was happening, and I was like, wow, this is like, this movement out west is going crazy, and people are talking about it.
Yeah, I don't even now, I probably don't know like the degree, because people would have to tell me like, oh, something on World Star, oh, this has this many views, but I do know that the impact kind of got really, like, me and Ezekiel started getting booked together a lot, even before we had a poem together. We started getting booked together a lot, and then it got to the point to where I was trying to finish up school, and I was just like getting asked to come out frequently, to the point to where I was like, man, I'm suffering in school. So I hit up my mom. I was like, yo, what should I do? You know, should I finish this? Because I really want to hurry up and with this degree and blah, 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 blah. And she was just like, this is your dream. Like, school will always be there, no matter how old you are. But this is your passion. This is what you've always wanted to do. Just pursue that and see what the Lord is doing. So once we started traveling and then going to a different country, I was like, that kind of like was, and it was way later in the game probably, but just kind of interacting with people and seeing, like, I started when there was no internet, so to kind of see the transition with YouTube and everything like that, it was just like, wow, this is a real thing. But for me, again, it felt like more weight and heaviness and responsibility. So
I had a question for you. You just saw me juggling with my kids.
Yeah, I did.
My wife and Maya, they do a podcast together. And so my wife is here in the mornings, and then I'm here in the afternoons to do this show. And you have had to take your family on the road with you before. You've had to bring them on tour buses, and you go and do shows and all across the city. How do you balance that? Being a full-time mom and being an artist and having to and just having to balance all of life. How do you do that?
Yeah, I've failed miserably, and I'm learning to, as Donnie McClurkin says, get back up again. And my husband is sure enough to tell me when I am, which is his responsibility. For one, it's a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
I know that my responsibility is to my husband and to my daughter first. I'm not going to be out here without them. It just doesn't work well. We've tried it. We get off. Like, things get lost in translation.
Yeah.
And so we just feel that it's better for us to do as a family. I also, you know, my mom was very involved in church, and I'm grateful for that. Let me say that. I'm really grateful. But the church was never at a point to where they would say, hey, we know that you have responsibilities as a mom. Let's back up a little bit and not use you to this capacity. Right. But because she was so gifted at what she did, they just used and used and used, which caused us to have a bit of a disdain for church, period. It was just like, and I don't ever want my child to feel that way. I want her to know there's nowhere I can go that she can't go. There's nowhere I can go that my husband can't go. And we need to make sure that we're operating as a family and making sure that we're all one another's priority. So balance on the road, I think not even this year, but the last year when we first all went on all together on tour on PIA, she was one. And it's hard because all the poets we're actually friends, right?
Yeah.
So it's like being on the road with your friends every day, right?
Yeah.
So at night when everything was over, I'd hang out and we all be laughing and talking and acting the fool, and and then I go back into the back room at 3 a.m. and he's been with her all day long, you know, and just not being considerate of, you know, what he has to go through on a regular basis. I think this year was a lot better. You know, I think we talked through it, we made plans for it, we were just adamant about putting one another first and being mindful, like, hey, what would you like to do today? Do you want to hit the gym? You know what I'm saying? And I take her at this point because honestly, from the time they wake up until the end of the night, it's a wrap. Like, he has to be in full daddy mode. Yeah. And so just making sure that I'm intentional about spending time when I get back on the bus. So it is definitely about balance, and it's hard. And it's also kind of hard to be mindful, to be able to say, hey, like, I've been out here a while. I really want to talk to you, and I appreciate you coming out. I got to get back to my baby on the bus, or I got to get, and not feel like this crazy. Because for me, I feel this obligation. Like, you paid. I'll be the last one out there. Like, just still doing it, you know. So I just feel the responsibility to to be able to balance and say, yeah, like I am appreciative of being here, but at the same time, I want to kiss my baby goodnight.
Yeah,
you know.
Is it at all harder now that you're married and have a family to be transparent in your writing? For instance, you have a piece called Red, which touched me greatly because I know way too much about what you were talking about than I even want to talk about here. But that was so transparent. Is there any hesitancy to be transparent now that there's other people in your life?
No, I think as long as my husband can see the benefit of it, of people being able to hear a message and the gospel, he encourages it. I think I am definitely mindful in the sense of when it comes to anything in regards to my daughter, because she doesn't currently have a say right now.
Exactly.
And I think that her opinion strongly matters to me. I don't want to ever do things or have her involved to where she looks back and says, I don't think I like that, or I don't want to be represented that way.
Right.
Just because I felt like I wanted to. I don't feel like that's my right. I feel like she's an individual person. She should have her right. So until she's able to say, Mommy, I want to, Mommy, I don't, I kind of scale back when it comes to things regarding her. But as far as things personally or things like that, which was a very difficult piece to share, I think it's I believe people relate to honesty
because it's hard, because I got to benefit from it, but I know when I write now, it's like I have these other people in my head, you know. Before I would just be like, I'm open book, I'll say whatever.
It was before.
Right.
I think I feel a little more safer in the space of being married, but I think beforehand, like when I did the piece about sexual abuse, I had to think about like, hey, this person who did this in our family, I felt free to talk about my father because he passed away. Right. But the person who's still alive that did this in our family, he has kids now and he has a wife. Right. Do they know? And it, honestly, the grief that he has to live with a sin that was committed way when he was like 19 years old, and now he's a way grown man, right? That he already repented for. That's hard. And I think even having to live with just the aftermath of that, because his kids were like, who did that to her?
Yeah. Right.
No, Dad, like, who did that to her?
Right.
What do you do with that?
Yeah.
That's tough. So I think I ended up having more empathy for his situation than mine, because no matter how we look at it in the church, the molester or the whatever is always going to be looked at in a specific light, and I'm going to always be looked at as a victim, no matter what happens, no matter how you slice it. And so I was very careful about not naming names and things like that. So I think it's just something to be mindful of.
I just want people to realize how much of a sacrifice it is to write these things down, because you feel like God gave you these messages to benefit other people, but it comes at a cost.
It does.
It really does.
It does, for sure.
Yeah, it's very vulnerable. First of all, I've just been drinking and everything. Like, in my happy place. So good. Just so many things that all of y'all have been talking about that I'm just like, yes. But I just appreciate the value that has been placed as you're sharing your journey in like just having community around you as you're writing. Yeah. People that, like you running your piece through past your husband, and, having people around you that are honest enough to say, hey, this can be improved upon.
Absolutely.
And in this day and age, that's like frowned upon. That's rare. Yeah. And I don't think people see the gift in it. They look at it like, I don't want that, or like it's a challenge or it's an issue. So I'm grateful that is celebrated. Yeah. But because you've been writing and speaking for years, like how has your craft evolved? Yeah. Not just as far as content, because of course as your life experiences change, that's going to evolve in and of itself, but craft wise, like how do you challenge yourself, and how do you allow other people to challenge you? Because you can get in the same rhyme schemes, rhyme patterns, the same verbiage, the same words. How do you challenge yourself to continue growing in your craft?
Yeah, I think on a regular level, I think I'm always my hugest competition. I never want to be or do anything that can be compared to something that I've already done. Yeah. So I will go to drastic measures, as you probably know, to kind of be like, that piece does not compare to that piece. But when it comes to how it's evolved, I don't even know if people would call it an evolution as much as scaling back in a sense, because when I was really doing poetry before, it's just like, again, that era of like battle rapping and all that type of stuff. Like that's who I was. Like I'm here to be in your face. But even now, like we would have times with like Netix, just because Ezekiel's like, I heard of Netix before anybody heard it, like before I even met her, like, and I heard you was battling cats and stuff like that, and that was fun and dope. But it's all stuff, which is why I won't do it now, because I don't know how to say, like, without saying I'm gonna knock your head off, like because I'm the illest. Like I don't know how to like say about keep talking about myself. I'm talking about how I'm way doper than you, and I don't feel like that's where I am anymore. Gotcha.
Wow.
But for now, I think that I would go in the beginning. I would go for like, what's the dopest pun? What's the dopest metaphor? What's the dopest? And our audience has expanded so vastly that we're not speaking to a room full of poets anymore. We're speaking to a generation and people who will choose to listen to a 10-minute poem over a 30-minute sermon. And so because of that, I think that I don't go so much for. I feel like if you don't know that I can do what I could do, then it's fine. I'm not here to prove anything anymore. But at this point, it's more important for me to get the message to you than anything else. So I still want it to be dope, but the dopeness isn't as important to me. It has to be at a certain, for me myself, I'm not going to not let it get at a certain level.
We got you.
But I'm talking to my great grandmother who was, in the 80s, and I'm talking to the sweetheart who was 4 years old who couldn't understand this little light mine. I'm talking to everyone because the gospel it transcends, and I don't want to have a message that speaks to one specific demographic because I believe the gospel doesn't do that. It speaks to all.
Let's go.
I have in a lot of other areas of art, I think Christians are either trying to get there or right there. As far as I'm concerned, Christian spoken word artists are the best. I don't feel any kind of like lack of talent. To me, honestly, when I hear other spoken word artists, I'm like, that's a dumb topic. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they're worse in a lot of ways. The other thought that came to mind was spoken word has such a ability to challenge tradition. Like I've seen some of your pieces and other people in your crew where you're able to on a stage at a church, at their church, say things that they probably don't want you to say, right? And it's such a license to be so truthful about God, and they let you do it, even if it cuts them.
Right.
Do you see that? Like,
absolutely,
what's
it's all in the name of
there?
art. I think it's interesting. It's like we get you get a pass in the name of art.
Exactly.
And it's actually can be very dangerous. I talk about like a lot of different music styles, and it's sometimes somebody's asking me like, what's your favorite, you know what I'm saying, like, do you in the Christian realm, like what is your favorite genre in the Christian realm? And I'm just like, I like the very old school hymns and gospel where it's very clear what I'm talking about, like not like if the oceans fell from the sky and spin around 10,000 times and it fluttered into a million galaxies, like I don't know what we're talking about here. In the name of art, like we could be talking about anything, and then later on down the line we're start saying Jesus, but I already left out after the first hook. So I like things that are very clear about what I'm speaking about, and it's no shade to that. It's just that's just the era I come from. So I lean towards that. And the same thing with poetry. Like when my husband graduating from seminary, I remember like in the beginning of our marriage, it was just like it was tough because it was like I'm going to like he's very well studied. Like this brother is got his face in the book all the time. I gotta like yo, it's okay. You can stop reading. And so. But to have all that education and then like be asked to speak somewhere, and then I go get asked to speak somewhere. In the beginning, it was just like, this is a little difference in the financial, because people value art. That's the thing. And when it's dressed in that for some reason, I mean, I think it's just the way that we're cut. Like we respond to it differently than we respond. And my goal is to, through art, to get people to gain a passion for the word of God, which is why I try to, infuse that so much. Because I want people to gain that passion. Like, hey, this what you're going through? Now attach it to this scripture because it's the word of the Lord that stands forever, not my words. So if you can attach it to that, now you have a resource to go back to and be passionate about God's word.
Spoken word has from what I've seen, has such an ability to cut through culture, through age. It's just a respect for it that is unmatched to me. You know what I mean? It's just it's interesting. Now, but let's talk about music, because I know that's a passion of yours. How is the transition between spoken word and music? Is it a different muscle you have to use to get into that space? It's actually a harder muscle for poetry.
Music has always been for me, it's been at the forefront. Like I said, I believe that God chose to do what he has done and is been doing and still doing with poetry. And I just kind of wanted to just really be obedient to that. My husband has been asking me to do the music for he's like, please, but they don't, please. And now, all this time I've led worship, you know what I'm saying, at my past church for like 13 years. I've always been very musical. It's always been, and I grew up in a church where it was like, yo, like we don't, nobody's on the keys. Well, let me see if I can figure it out with two, and then nobody's on the drums. So it's like, let me figure it out. But then it also was this crazy thing of like, it was hard because they didn't know what to do with me. And that, dang, I don't want to, there's no shade in this, but because I was a woman, they didn't want me in certain arenas when it came to church. but then they couldn't deny it because nobody else could do it. So it kind of became a thing of like, well, let's just use her because we ain't got nobody else. But then if somebody else comes in less qualified, not even living the life that we're supposed to live, they can, okay, get off the drums because there's a guy here. And it's just like, you know, and I think I've dealt with it in every single stage of church, of church, no matter what denomination, every single stage of church, which is extremely hurtful. But I'm in a place when it comes to music where it could not be all that I know it could be, which is why it took me a while to be like, yo, like at this point, like, and I was talking to Natalie, y'all know Nat, and I remember when she first heard it, and she was like, well, we don't use the N-word here, but she was like,
you in the field.
Sorry, Nat.
You in the field.
Hey. Sorry, Nat.
You in the field.
But she was like, yo, like, what's the deal? Like, what is this? What are you doing? Like, and I was like, yeah, you know, it's she's like, no, like, let's get this done, blah, blah, blah. So, right. So I get the project done, but when I was finished, I was like, I finally got to that point to where I felt, you know, okay, this is going to be I don't know if y'all know this, but I don't know if y'all know Bruce Lee and Enter the Dragon, but it was kind of like, okay, so like when he's going through and like the mirror part and he's just kind of, the arms are just kind of going, or kind of like at the end of the Matrix when Neo finally tilted his head. It's like, I have no apologies about what I've done now. Like, you can come for me if you want.
Come on.
I'm that confident. And it's not, it's like, you know, that line of arrogance where it's like, I could be arrogant over here. I'm right.
We got you.
As far as confidence, because of how much I put into it, because it's so much that it has gone into this project. It's not even funny. Like, and I'm just super grateful.
That's awesome.
So, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Awesome. And I know the live performance is going to just, it's not going to be nothing that anybody.
You going to do a live recording? What?
Yeah, we are actually out here on March 28th.
Oh,
phenomenal. So, yeah, for sure.
Cool.
For sure. And it's costing us everything, so I need y'all to be there.
Come on.
So you come back in before and then we'll
absolutely.
push it.
Yeah.
So YouTube is asking a question. They want to know, how can we pray for you? What can we pray for?
Listen, that balance section is a really good thing. I think even just talking about and transparently, like when I say it's costing us everything, like it's difficult because it's like, hey, like, do we pull this money from our household to put this whole thing on for me? Like, why? My husband has goals. I mean, he wants to open a school here. He wants to do a lot of different things, and it's just like, how do we decide and navigate? Like, what do we decide to do? And as him being like the head, it's just like, hey, like, no, I believe in this so much. Like, we're gonna do this. And at times, it's like, it feels like, for me, the weight of it feels heavy because it's like there's a guilt side of it. Like, should we really be doing this? Or you know what I'm saying, should we really be because he's doing like a whole devotional that goes along with the album, right? Awesome. So it's like all that goes into it. Will it be worth it in the end? But now I have to reshape my mind. It's like, what deems something as worth it? Does a sold out event deem something as worth it? Do you still have the same heart you had when you first started doing poetry? Like, man, if I just do this for 5 people, like, this is just amazing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because the reality is like, I performed for 5 people like it was 1,000 and 5 people got saved. And then I performed for 1,000 and 5 people got saved. So it's like the way that we see what something is, you know, the value of something and the worth is just very different. So I'm just excited. It's been a crazy journey.
Everything you're saying is dope.
It is. It really is.
So tell people how to find you. Of course, we're going to have you back to push your man. How can they find you? How can they follow you?
Yeah, everything is under I Am Genetics, IAMGENETICS. That's Instagram, that's everything, and that's everything. So, you know, I'm old, so I'll be trying to stay connected.
Yeah.
But I'm like you getting out the car with the kids, like, I'm not responding to no. I'm sorry, right now I have to cook, yo. So yeah, man.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, we really
let's get back into it. You in the field with the Trackstarz, Ryan Wright, Sean Tanner, DJ Jeremiah. Let's go.
Hey guys, Miracle here. Thank you so much for watching that episode. Make sure you go below, like it, subscribe, click the bell, and make sure you follow us on all forms of our social media. Also, check out our website and be sure you spread the word. We'll see you next time.
We know not what we doing. Screw that, they know, let them have it, do it. Okay, I'm erratic, prove it. Never mind, got a mind that'll wind up with me in a lineup behind bars with these bars. Okay, my time's up.
Team Freedom. Yeah. We not through yet. All right. Trackstarz Music presents.
Turn my volume up. Turn me off.